No matter what Smash game, there's always going to be a group of top tiers and low tiers. And if you've watched the other videos that I've created on this topic, you would know this. Ultimate has one of the tightest rosters out of all the official Smash games, where most of the characters can be used in competitive play, even the low tiers. Who would have thought? The underrepresented characters could be a lot better with just a couple of buffs. When most people hear the term low tier, they think of Melee Bowser or Brawl Ganondorf. Well, the ultimate low tiers are not nearly as awful. Ganondorf is still at the bottom every time, but stay tuned for that. You can argue that any character can be used in high-level tournament, which is crazy for how big the game's roster truly is this time around. And some of you might be asking, wait, what do you mean? I can click on any character in any game and play them in tournament, hypothetically. Well, you know, if you play Melee Bowser against Melee Sheik, you'll start to understand how tough certain matchups can be when you are a low tier. That's how stark the difference between these characters can be depending on the game. But just like any other Smash game, the low tiers exist for a reason, so that's why we're going over every single low tier that is in the D to E tier in Super Smash Bros. Ultimate. Again, in a bite-sized format because, you know, this is a video at the end of the day. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and thank you for supporting the channel. Seriously, means the world to me. More videos to come. Mewtwo was heavily nerfed in Smash Ultimate. Mainly it's because Mewtwo's ranked as a top tier near the end of Smash 4. Ironically, he didn't start out as a good character even when he first dropped as a DLC fighter during Smash 4's meta. So they fixed him, and I guess the devs assumed he was fixed too much. And to be honest, the reason why Mewtwo is a lot worse in this game is it was more of under the hoods type of stuff than just the meta working against him. His tail hurtbox, which has been sort of retroactively changed almost every single iteration of the character, well, they widened the hurtbox, which is overall going to be a huge nerf to the character, considering this is a big reason why, you know, the Melee version had poor survivability, because the bigger the hurtbox on his tail, it's going to make him easier to be comboed and clipped by moves. And he's already a light character with poor survivability because he's a glass cannon, so that's not going to be a good combination. Shadow Ball was previously one of the strongest KO tools in Smash 4, and now it deals less shield damage, which, yeah, this move was known for being so easy at breaking shields when fully charged. It was that good. And his jab is no longer can jab cancel. His nair has more end lag and a shorter duration with smaller hitbox. Forward air's launch angle is a lot lower, which hurts its KO potential and its ability to wall of pain. The biggest thing that was changing Mewtwo was actually Ultimate's directional air dodge. And some of you might be saying, oh, Zach, what do you mean? How does Smash Ultimate's directional air dodge affect Mewtwo? Well, Mewtwo had one of the best air dodges probably in the series in Smash 4. It was that good. You could just spam it over and over because of how quick it was, and it allowed Mewtwo to disappear. And you combine this with his really fast neutral air. Initially, people thought this version of Mewtwo was actually just as good as the Smash 4 version. Many people looked at Mewtwo being heavier in Smash Ultimate as a benefit to his survivability, and they even thought he could enjoy this engine's mobility increases. But as the years went by, Mewtwo just struggled so much to maintain relevance. It's really sad to see. While Robin does have some neat quality of life changes to his character, and you know what, I'm saying this as a person who actually secondaries Robin from time to time, he's just outclassed a lot in this game. And when you look at Smash Ultimate's roster of sword characters, you start to see why. There's just plenty of other characters that are much faster than him, and Ultimate's engine is definitely holding him back if you don't have the correct amount of mobility. It doesn't balance out the crazy amount of negatives that are working against him, like having the second worst dash in the game. And I know you're looking at him, right? Robin is slower than Ganondorf. Jigglypuff, Bowser, Byleth, King Dedede is faster than him. Like seriously, it just doesn't make any sense. Why is Robin, who just has a sword in a book, just slower than everyone else? But between the sword character archetype and the projectile zoner archetype, which are done better by other characters in this roster, like Byleth, Cloud, and all three Links, baby. Even Hero, you get it. I just don't understand why Robin has the worst dash and run speed in the game when he's just a dude with a sword and tomes. He's sort of a middle-of-the-road character in Ultimate, somewhat better in some areas in this game, like finally giving a Nair 11 sword variant. This is actually honestly something that Robin deserved in Smash 4. And the HUD icon on the bottom of the screen is actually a really nice touch for keeping track of his weapon depletion mechanic, which God knows is probably still another limiting factor for him at times. The universal speed buffs did benefit Robin, like having much better aerials with less lag. He's still got nerfed too, which is really strange. No longer being able to use Levin Sword at the start of a match. Robin's Checkmate, which was a well-known combo that he could use with his down throw, was removed, as down throw now is more knockback. Elwyn's tome can deplete a lot faster in Smash Ultimate, so I mean, this was not really a factor in Smash 4, but hey, they balanced it out, I guess. Robin is existing in an engine where he's improved in some areas. All the other sword fighters and zoners are much better too. All the mobility that could have went his way, he didn't really earn in this game. Sure, Robin is a cool character and I definitely like using him, but it's hard to make him a solid argument in competitive play when there's so many other characters that do what he can do a lot better and don't have the crippling mobility or being limited to his quirky mechanics. So if there's any Smash sequel, let's just make Robin faster, okay? He doesn't need to be Sonic or anything like that, but let's just give him some actual mobility. I don't think he would be that broken with better speed. Funnily enough, Donkey Kong's frame data in the early Smash Ultimate build was actually slightly better than when the game fully came out, which is where he's a little bit more toned down after that. This version of Donkey Kong was nerfed pretty hard, losing many of his well-known grab confirms, the blast zones being normalized. His moveset is less safe in this game as his attacks are more punishable on shield, and while yes, he's actually a lot faster, for being a heavyweight, that's actually pretty good. He still has flaws in his archetype like being combo food and being easy to poke because of his weight and size. He did get some nice buffs at Giant Punch as it charges faster and no longer puts him in a helpless state. Headbutt grants him super armor, which is a nice way to buff the move, and down special has less lag and it's faster. His cargo throw was massively improved as it's harder to mash out of the throw input, and his dash attack became actually a much faster. Seriously, this is actually the most buffed move in his entire kit, is his dash attack. Finally being lore accurate, baby. Up smash's hitboxes are larger, but he did receive a lot of nerfs too, like his up special's horizontal distance being limited, no longer having intangibility at startup, and up air had its animation change, which is going to hinder its range. Ultimately, this version of DK isn't the worst iteration. He is nerfed from Smash 4. Isabelle is usually stated as an underrated character in the meta. Isabelle is known for having a strong defensive game and zoning tools, and a decent ability to juggle with her up tilt or up air. Many of her moves borrow exact animations from Villager, having the slingshot and the turnip aerials. The main difference is Isabelle has a bit stronger up close tools compared to Villager. She also has some trapping tools and zoning tools that make her a little bit more frustrating to play against. Her fishing rod more specifically. It's an insane juggling tool because it's essentially a special throw. She can play campy and defensive and can be frustrating to deal with because of these tools, and then Isabelle can close in on her opponent and confirm off of them. However, she has plenty of flaws that hold her back, like her weight is terrible. This makes her easy to KO. While her recovery is similar to Villager, it's not as safe, and her grab range is absolutely terrible, and it's also incredibly laggy. This actually applies to her fishing rod tool. No matter how cool this is, it's got a lot of flaws, it's easy to punish, and it's possible for it to disconnect if it's stopped by a platform and then be punished for trying to use it. Even her trap elements can be taken advantage of, like her down special can be triggered by the opponent. It can limit its utility as it can easily be destroyed. It is usually seen as a weaker version of Villager in the earlier updates of Smash Ultimate, but it was mainly for her being difficult to kill and her less safe moves. But as the years went by, people began to warm up on the character and really prove that Isabelle is not the worst character in the game. So yeah, she is definitely a low tier, just not as bad as people thought she was. And then over time, people realized, oh wait, she might actually be better than Villager, and the balance patches, like giving her Wobble as one of her strong abilities to ledge trap, was nice. The thing about Bowser Jr. is the character was bad during Smash 4. Having probably one of the worst projectiles in the series, yeah, it was that bad, look at it. Bowser Jr.'s Neutral B was always seen as a lackluster projectile. While it was buffed in Smash Ultimate, it didn't really improve the character that much, and this applies to many other areas for the character. A major improvement for the character was fixing his clown car hurtbox. It's supposed to make him deal less damage to himself when he's hit in the car area. However, if you hit Bowser Jr. in the scale hurtboxes, he's dealt more damage. It's actually a weird plus negative to the character. The problem was the clown car hurtbox wasn't covering his entire clown car, which actually meant he would take more damage from certain projectiles than any other character in the game because it wasn't covering enough of the clown car. Smash Ultimate thankfully fixed this, and it made the clown hurtbox a lot bigger, so this was a much needed improvement. It's automatically gonna fix his survivability issues for a lot of people. His forward throw is a KO throw. It has better hitboxes. His jab can actually break shields better. These things ultimately didn't change his viability that much. Sure, his aerials are faster, but they're pretty much universal for every character in the game. Bowser Jr. is mostly the same in Smash Ultimate without really that many changes. Ike being down here is kind of depressing because Ike was actually a lot higher in the earlier days of the meta. This was obviously because he was represented by more top level players. I mean, he really enjoys the 3-frame jump squat, the faster aerials across the board, and having better mobility. So no surprise, Ike's ability to punish in this game is actually really good. His nair is, more specifically, has much lower end lag and startup. And you would see this move a lot. His up air animation was changed and it became a stronger juggling tool. Back air and forward air are stronger KO tools. Down throw and down tilt were solid combo tools. He had many KO buffs, like on the landing hit of nair, jab, forward tilt, and down smash. Aside from the buffs, he was noticeably nerfed in some areas, like his dash being decreased, which doesn't really improve his mobility that much. It actually makes it more of a problem. Many of his grounded options were just as slow, like his smash attacks. His grab being toned down in Smash Ultimate, it hurt Ike's well-known grab follow-ups, and it makes him struggle to confirm with his jab because it receives some buffs to its KO power, sure, but its hitbox is a lot smaller, making it hard to confirm with. More importantly, Ike's issue is his recovery. You could argue is even more of a problem in this game because it's harder to grab ledges in this game. So Ike has a limited up special and side special. It just leads to him having a problematic recovery. The main thing that worked against Villager in Smash Ultimate compared to the iteration in Smash 4 was the fact that he got nerfed a lot. And this is really just sad. There's more dominant projectile zoners in Smash Ultimate. There's characters who got introduced as DLC who are really doing what Villager wants to do, but just a lot better. And many confirms from Smash 4 have been removed, like his jab into X, or his previously broken balloon trip in Smash 4 has been toned down significantly, and its recharge is much slower and it will spawn one balloon more commonly. Or his forward air and back air dealing less shield damage and having more end lag. But the real difference is that Villager is existing in a game engine where it's just more fast paced. While the devs gave many buffs to the rest of the cast, Villager mainly got nerfed and is playing the same type of game, just more toned down. Especially with these sword characters wandering around, they're so prevalent in this meta. They have a higher amounts of mobility and they're strong at comboing, and Villager just doesn't like dealing with them. Now, I'm not gonna lie, I've attempted to main Zelda in this game. I know, right? I should get an award. No. This is actually not a bad version of Zelda. She is certainly buffed in this game, doing things that she should have done for decades, like significantly improving her mobility with her dash, run speed, walk speed, and air speed being improved across the board. She has larger hitboxes on her moves, like her aerials more specifically. She still has aerials that deal high amounts of knockback, which is actually insane. They could have totally made that an excuse to make her faster and weaken those moves, but they really didn't. They made their sweet spots actually easier to hit. She still has a high risk, high reward moveset, but she has reduced amounts of lag and more KO potential on her sweet spots, as they're so much easier to hit. It makes her feel a lot better in this game. Like her back and up throw are possible KO throws. While her specials were known for being super risky in the past because of just their huge amounts of end lag and all the flaws that they had, like Din's Fire, putting her helpless off stage, and the amount of lag on every single special move that she had. The devs truly realized the flaws of the character and tried to give her stronger moves, like Din's Fire potentially KOing, and its duration is 3 times as long as the Smash 4 version. Its hitboxes are much larger. Similar changes were given to Neutral B, like Neru's Love having less startup and up special, and again, you can actually KO with it a little bit easier. Phantom gaining a new slash hitbox, and it charges faster, and they significantly decreased its lag, taking away its cooldown when it's destroyed. Called this move really pointless in Smash 4. It definitely got buffed this time around, which by far her biggest flaw though in Smash was toned down. So some of you might be wondering, what's the big deal then? Like, how is she all the way down here? Zelda is the fastest she's ever been in this game, which is by far the biggest flaw of the character in almost every single Smash game. Many people initially thought this was just the best version of Zelda right off the bat, and it definitely is, but she still is slow compared to the rest of the cast. So while Zelda's mobility is improved, so is every other character in the cast, unfortunately. Her frame data is the best it's ever been, but it's still not enough to keep up with the higher level characters. People were optimistic about how bad she was in Smash 4, and so maybe she could have a lot of potential if she was improved in these ways. It simply is just not enough, as the buffs did improve her combo game. However, she's still a lightweight on the floatier side, and those things limit her survivability still, as Zelda's polarizing archetype is maybe not as polarizing, but it's still not enough to lift her from being a low tier. Even during the balance patches that improved many of her flaws, they still just weren't enough, as she's still held down by her mobility, her risky options, and disadvantaged states. And it's sad because I personally love this version of Zelda, as they clearly tried to make improvements to her. Don't get me wrong, they definitely tried, but it just isn't enough, unfortunately. Simon and Richter are both low tier characters in Ultimate, and both of them are almost identical to each other, and that's because them being obvious Echo Fighters. Really, the difference is only the colors on their down special that really only affects slight parts of the Olimar matchup. But both of them are pretty much identical. They are slow projectile zoners with hard-hitting smash attacks and aerials that have a lot of range, a really strange character archetype to see in Smash. Several of their moves are good at ledge trapping, and most importantly, their special moves like Axe, Cross, and Holy Water. Their up special is a strong out of shield option. Their forward and back airs can be tilted, which is actually a really nice quirk that they have. Their smash attacks have a lot of weight to them, and they hit especially hard at the sweet spot of these attacks, kind of like a Marth Tipper would. However, they have a lot of obvious issues, as they are incredibly slow. Their moves have a lot of startup and end lag, and their mobility is definitely not the best, especially in the ground and in the air. So this leads to them being juggled like a hacky sack. It is neat that they can grab ledges with their chain. It's actually a recovery tool. It's not as good as you might think it is though, and their up special is a limited tool because of their low jumps and terrible aerial drift, and their representation is mostly taken a hit in the more recent years as people realize they're just really hard to play. They can be punished by, shield punishing these moves and, back throwing them. If you really want to cheese them and just hit them once, they'll probably die. Their grab range is not good. Just many things are not working for them, unfortunately. Oh my god, surprise, surprise. Kirby is a low tier again. It's like poetry, it rhymes. Kirby is known for having fast combo starting moves, and these moves actually have low amounts of end lag. He's a small character and he can crouch under attacks. His throws lead well into other moves in his kit, like forward throw more specifically. Up throw can KO, although his grabs are pretty short and they have pretty abysmal range, and this extends to many of Kirby's attacks in his kit. Like many iterations of the character, he has poor amounts of range, which affects his ability to approach, especially since these are mostly going to be because he lacks a projectile in most matchups. And Kirby doesn't have the best mobility, as he's known for being outcamped by plenty characters who can outmaneuver him in the air and in the ground. But Kirby can definitely get in and get the advantage on his opponent. It just requires him to do a lot more work. And the fact the character is floaty and light in general, and also his recovery is not the best because, again, his aerial drift is definitely holding him back. Don't get me wrong, he has solid frame data, decent combo ability, but he has challenging aspects outside of that, and overall it's a mixture for why the character is a low tier this time around. The Mii Swordfighter is probably the most forgettable character in the game, and no offense to the people who main this character, but it's sort of the sad truth, as even the character's viability is not that good. Being an average character weight-wise and height-wise, high amounts of airspeed, and obviously because he has access to multiple custom moves. Some of these customs are fantastic, like the Gale Strike or the Chakram as spacing tools. His Hero Spin is a potential KO tool. They have a Reverse Slash that is good at beating projectile play. Even his normals are powerful. Forward air and neutral air are spacing tools, and he has multiple hits, giving Mii Swordfighter sort of confirms on grounded opponents. Additionally, almost all of Mii Swordfighter's aerials can be easily comboed into from their down throw. Many of his tilts are solid tools at juggling, and his back and up air are fast and powerful, the former being a really strong KO tool and for its use for spacing. Their jab is a solid tool for confirming. Their recovery, depending on which custom you choose, can give you one of the best recoveries out of all the Miis. You might be wondering though, what are their negatives? Well, the Mii Swordfighter is actually terrible at range despite having a sword. He has some of the worst disjoints in the game out of any sword character, and even their attacks are laggy. Their throws have mediocre utility outside of his down throw, and sure, he has a strong recovery, but that's with a certain custom you have to choose. A lot of them have terrible recovery utility if you choose the wrong one, which essentially makes the Mii Swordfighter into a jack of all trades but a master of none. Unfortunately, despite Piranha Plant being sort of a meme character pick as a DLC fighter, they actually aren't that good. And Plant on paper is a defensive, tanky character with low amounts of mobility, Patui is actually the strongest projectile in the game, with its large amount of damage and knockback that it can do. It is actually one of the best approaches at ledge and really well at trapping. Poison Breath can be used as a tool to build up damage. If the opponent is in the poison gas, yeah, it's definitely going to be deadly. Their frame data on the ground is actually not that bad. Having strong smash attacks, a grab that is quick, their up throw is a KO throw, and they have a strong level of endurance because of their weight, and their recovery is really good too. Their negatives lie in the fact that they lack range, and this is mainly because Piranha Plant has really bad hitbox placements, most notably up air and nair. The character also has pretty terrible mobility. They're bad at gaining advantage because of this, as they're highly reliant on their circumstantial effective attacks that require a lot of startup. Their side special grants Piranha Plant more range. It's finicky to control. Its vulnerable hitbox during its extension phase also makes it a really weird move in a lot of situations. His combos are not really considered that consistent despite all of his moves being pretty decent. The character is also shut down by reflectors, as this can totally destroy Piranha Plant's stronger zoning tools or his side B or neutral B. The character did have glimmers of hope throughout the meta, but he didn't maintain this overall, and this is why he has sparse results. Just the thing about Piranha Plant is his combos aren't really as consistent as they might seem, and that's really because of these just weird hitbox placements. The cool thing about Dr. Mario is the character did get a lot of updated animations that help him feel more distinct from Mario. Dr. Mario has stronger attacks for KOing, but ultimately he has less mobility compared to his other iteration. And while Mario can combo characters to the top blast zone, Doc really can't do that, as he has lots of landing lag. But he does have the stronger KO tools like forward air, back throw, and smash attack. He has short range, and this is a limiting factor to his moves, as this encourages him to get more aggressive and try to get in, but he has poor amounts of aerial mobility compared to Mario, and this affects his aerial combos, and more importantly, his absolutely terrible recovery. It is a major downfall to his character archetype, and it's why he is outclassed by Mario really badly. Once Doc gets in, he can definitely be more deadly than he might come off as, whether it's his up special or down special having a decent amount of frame data to them, and their combo tools. He has a projectile. It's just extremely difficult for him to get in. His moves deal more damage, especially his projectile, more specifically gaining more knockback. His side special has a higher reflection multiplier, but they actually nerfed his really terrible airspeed and jump height and made it worse, which is doubling down on what already has made him pretty bad in previous Smash games. And it's making these stark differences between Dr. Mario and Mario even more stark, but it definitely limits Dr. Mario, as he's just not really good enough in a lot of his areas where he needs to be good. More importantly, his much needed airspeed buffs and recovery buffs. This would help him immensely if he just had a better recovery, but they probably will never do that. King Dedede, unfortunately, this is another version of Dedede being a low tier, and it's a combination of the Smash 4 iteration just doing this to the character. While he does have a solid vertical recovery, and being a heavyweight, he can survive very high percents with solid trapping tools due to his massive disjointed hitboxes. And of course, like most heavyweights, Dedede just hits like a truck. In fact, this version of the character, he has a much needed buffs to his KO power and combo potential, like on his aerials more specifically. Down air is actually a strong meteor tool, although it's pretty laggy, or even the character's grab game having a stronger back throw for KOing. Inhale is a strong command throw that can even reflect projectiles in this game, which is actually a really smart way to give him a buff for him to actually have something to deal with camping, because he used to never have anything really that substantial. He has well-known moves with high amounts of armor, like his jet hammer. The main negative for Dedede is, well, I'm sure you can tell, he's a heavyweight. He has a large character model, which means he's probably one of the easiest characters to combo in the game. Even his grab options, which were rather decent, especially in Brawl, the most hilarious grab ranges in Brawl, and it's just really average in Ultimate. Many of Dedede's tools can be used against him, like his Gordo Toss. These moves have high amounts of startup and end lag, and it's really unfortunate because the character is just overall a heavyweight, low mobility character with a big character model that's usually a 1-2 punch unless there's some sort of cheese to your archetype. He's not as bad as the Smash 4 version, but he overall isn't that great either. King K. Rool, like many other characters on this list, being a large heavyweight character that can similarly live for a long period of time. He has a versatile moveset that can actually have quick startup, unlike the other heavies. A well-known armor armor mechanic like his gut check, which can actually counter and reflect. It's actually a really neat idea for a move, especially for him being a heavyweight. At least gives him a way of dealing with certain projectiles at times. His recovery isn't too bad either. It has a hitbox on the propeller pack, and K. Rool will fly really high. It's actually pretty fast too. He even has 2 projectiles, which allows K. Rool to zone, being his neutral B and side special. Many heavies would kill for 2 ways of zoning. He even has a command grab. If he gets close to you, he can actually change the direction and then spit you out from his neutral B. He even has moves that can bury, which are actually really good on paper if you look at them. Down tilt and down throw more specifically. They have strong meteors like down air and back air. Their smash attacks are actually really strong. They're good for punishing rolls or opponents who are silly enough to think that getting hit by these moves won't kill them. Many people early on actually thought King K. Rool was way too good. And this is actually during the early launch days of the game. People obviously realized that this wasn't going to be maintained long term. He clearly has a lot of flaws. Most of K. Rool's aerials are actually extremely laggy, startup and end lag wise, and they're very easy to punish. His belly armor, that is a premier mechanic for the character, can be against the character, as his belly armor actually can get destroyed. This is a big yikes. His crown can also be used against him as it falls on the ground, and if K. Rool doesn't pick it up, they can throw it back at him, baby. And also the animation K. Rool gets in when he picks up the crown again is way too long. He can get punished for that too. The character's options out of shield are also not good at all. Many of the possible out of shield options like up smash have pretty terrible hitbox placements, and where you would actually need this move to be a good out of shield option, you can just look at this animation and know how bad it is. Like the other heavies in this video are going to make him combo food because of his weight, poor mobility in the air, and the size of his hurt box. The overall limitations to his character hurts his approach options, his defensive game. He doesn't have strong ways of escaping out of combos. So while K. Rool may not have these same problems as other heavyweights, especially in Smash, his mobility is definitely slightly better compared to the other ones that have existed. It's still not that amazing. His cool, interesting mechanics are also double-edged swords, and these are ultimately going to be a lot of the problems for his character. So even though there's been some interesting strides for his character in Ultimate's history, yeah, the character just didn't maintain that, and ultimately, this is why he ended up as a low tier. I made a Pitfalls of Little Mac video where I covered the past iterations of the character. If you've been living under a rock, Little Mac is he's really bad, especially in this game. He is a fast, hard-hitting, rushdown character, some of the best frame data and power in the game, especially on the ground. It's crazy how fast he can shut down characters with his fast combo strings, like his jab, down tilt, his up tilt. Every single smash attack is strong as it has super armor, which allows him to sponge through attacks and then hit them back, baby. But this is extremely good, right? These are positives. He obviously, though, has a lot of negatives. His terrible recovery, which is a well-known aspect for his character. His up special and side special are terrible recovery tools, as they don't go far at all. He can use his down special. If you get a confirmed counter, you can use this to, somewhat save your recovery, but I still think it's pretty bad. His recovery is actually slightly buffed in this game, as you can input side special and then input up special, which is actually really nice. His aerials are obviously another flaw in his kit, as they have really terrible range and they do little knockback and damage. He did get some improvements. Directional air dodge does benefit his recovery a lot, as he definitely is going to need it. And his grabs have more range in this game, and it's still a part of his combo game. Most notably, his down throw is actually really solid. His jab is faster, and forward tilt. Down tilt has more range, uppercut deals more knockback. He benefits from the faster ground mechanics in this game, like his pseudo dash dancing that exists in Ultimate, but the nerfs are plenty, as his moves deal less amounts of damage, like his jab, and he's arguably weaker because of the directional air dodge, because it makes him actually harder to escape out of his combos. He's also existing in an engine where aerials are at their peak, and Little Mac has very little options for escaping out of them a lot of the time, which adds to even more fuel of him being combo food, bad at escaping out of follow-ups. Ganondorf in Smash Ultimate, surprisingly, is dead last. Again. But why? Isn't this the version of Ganondorf they actually gave him major amounts of buffs that the character truly deserved? Major flaws all the way back in Melee that were holding him back in many games. He has brand new smash attacks that actually give him a sword. These sword attacks are actually not that bad, at least if you look at them range-wise, especially compared to his previous smash attacks. And they're also lore accurate, as people have been asking for this sword smash attack for Ganondorf for decades. Nair and forward air are actually the fastest iterations of these moves ever, and he has attacks that actually can destroy characters like neutral B and up tilt. His overall mobility is slightly improved, enjoying the frame 3 jump squat normalization and being slightly faster walk-wise and dash-wise. He's actually good at upsetting people in this game, which shows that Ganondorf actually is strong enough to keep up with certain characters. If you truly do sleep on the character, he can get you, because this would really not happen as much in certain games. However, Ganondorf is still technically a low tier, despite being significantly buffed, so what's going on here? And I'm not gonna lie, in the past, I actually thought this was the best version of Ganondorf, which I do think it is in some ways, despite him being dead last. Overall, Ganondorf's mobility is buffed, but it's not as extreme as some of the other characters that exist in Ultimate, and it leaves most of his attacks speed-wise being definitely slower compared to the other characters. Also, he's a large heavyweight. He doesn't really have a solid way of dealing with projectiles still, so that means he could be easily camped. He's combo food. It's like poetry, it rhymes. And fun fact, a lot of the big heavyweights are low tiers in Ultimate. It's kind of sad when you really look down the list, you see so many of them are down here. Harder to KO characters in Ultimate compared to Smash 4 because Rage is weaker in this game. This does sort of nerf Ganondorf as he can't really abuse Rage as much as he possibly could have in Smash 4. His shield options are still pretty terrible. The increased tech window makes it easier for opponents to escape out of side special. The heavier weight in this game, it's gonna make him easier combo bait. And this change, you could argue, worked for the negative for Ganondorf, as he cannot spam air dodge to escape out of pressure anymore, as he could definitely do this in Smash 4. Many moves have increased lag, like his up tilt has a weak hitbox which limits it, and up special got cooked with startup. And up air has a lot more startup, and even the increased traction in this game makes it harder for Ganon to really get things started. As people thought early on, the character actually had what it takes to be the best iteration of the character and potentially not be a low tier. But then over time, I'm not gonna lie, even I thought he was actually good enough to not be a low tier, but I was proven wrong. Because he still does have plenty of the same issues, even though they are fixed in some areas, a lot of issues are also not fixed. Ganondorf at the end of the day is the truth sort of just wrung dry. He's still terrible at dealing with combos, projectiles, his recovery is also a problem to this day. His matchup spread is arguably even worse because many characters are just as fast in this game, if not faster, and love fighting against slow characters like Ganondorf, who struggle to deal with pressure. So yeah, you do hate to see it. It's just Ganondorf being Ganon at this point. This isn't the only time Ganondorf has been the worst character in the game, as he was all the way in Brawl, and he was even a low tier again in Smash 4. It is what it is. Maybe he'll have luck in the next Smash game. Comment below and let me know. Thank you guys for supporting the channel. There is a Patreon down below if you guys want to get videos early. So run that up if you want to support your boy or give back to the channel in any way. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Hopefully you guys are doing well. Take care.